watch right here. So I'm going to get this fired up and I'm going to bring us right to our slideshow. You should be able to see my screen now. I want to welcome you to Manuscript Monday. My name is Brian Cathanis. I'm your host. I've been hosting Manuscript Monday on a regular basis for over a year now, and off and on, when we've done them off and on, for close to 2 years or so. So I'm glad you're with us tonight. Tonight we have an incredible program. We're going to go from now until about 9 o'clock. We do this the first Monday of the month, unless a big holiday falls on a Monday, then we do Manuscript Monday on a Tuesday. But for the most part, it'll be the first Monday of the month. And today we're going to talk about identifying and valuing classic animation art. Our guest speaker and expert is Melanie Smith. She's an accredited member of the International Society of Appraisers, and I'm going to tell you more about that in just a second. So I got to go on here, make sure we're doing things right. Let me tell you a little about who the sponsor is. We're sponsored by the Manuscript Society, an organization, as you can see by our logo, celebrating our 75th year of being in existence as a not-for-profit educational organization designed to help people understand more about manuscripts. And the organization also educates folks about the importance of manuscripts and does a lot of manuscript preservation, including scholarships for students that are working on particular projects related to manuscripts. Why a webinar? Well, it's a whole lot easier these days and probably going to be the standard from here on in to get people together from all over the world. And we have people on from all over the world and invited people from around the world to join us today too. So we're on a Zoom webinar. That's our format. You're probably familiar with them by now. If you haven't been on a Zoom meeting, welcome to the first one. Why now? First Monday of the month. What a great way to share information and our enthusiasm for manuscripts and written documents and things related to that. And it's not just manuscripts. Leon Kastner did one on silver. Other people have done one on different types of art. Today, Melanie Smith is going to talk about animation art and cels and cartoon art and why that's important. Who is invited? We invite, work from a couple of mailing lists. We invite the members of the International Society of Appraisers and the other appraisal organizations. We invite folks from the Manuscript Society, of course, and the Society of American Archivists is another organization that I belong to, and we reach out to their members through their announcements. And there are a variety of other magazines. A journal called Fabs that the Manuscript Society is a member of has many thousands of members, and they're invited as well. Sometimes our members are members of other organizations like the Numismatic Society or the Ephemera Society or the American Philatelic Society, and those members are invited as well. So we got a good crowd tonight with a good mix of people from all kinds of different backgrounds. I'll tell you what we're going to cover in just a second. And I'm also going to tell you how you can get more information. If you need help and you're having trouble with the technology that's going on right now, my cell number is down there. I'm going to ask you to text me. Please don't call because I won't be able to pick up. I'm going to put it on silent right now, but I'll see a text, and if I can respond to you and give you a hand, I'd be happy to do that too. But I think it's pretty much straightforward. I'll tell you a little bit about how that works right now. Your video is not on and your audio is not on unless, of course, you're our speaker. So Melanie is on. You will find a place to chat. You'll find a place to answer questions. There's a way to raise your hand. You look at your little panel there. You can raise your hand and I will see that. And then towards the end of the presentation, Melanie offered to answer questions and share some additional thoughts if you have it. So when we get to that point, we'll ask you to either type into the chat box. There's a little spot there where you can type right in information, or you can just type into the question box and we'll make sure we answer that in just a little bit. And that's kind of about it. That's all you need to know to make it happen. So let me tell you what we're going to cover. This is the description we put up. I'm not going to read it because you can read. So I'm going to give you a minute to read through that so you know what we're talking about. And Melanie's going to cover even more than that. And you'll see why too. Let me tell you a little bit about Melanie Smith. I've known Melanie for many, many years. We became friends through the International Society of Appraisers. She's an accredited member of that organization, second generation owner of Seaside Art Gallery in Nags Head, North Carolina. And if her gallery had been open when the Wright brothers flew down there at Kill Devil Hill, they would have stopped by and probably bought something. She's been handling animation art since the early 1980s. Her gallery's been preferred gallery of Disney and Warner Brothers, Hanna Barbera Studios, and United Features. So she is working with all of the main animators and animation companies out there, and we've seen all the cartoons and been involved in it for many, many years. If you remember David Smith was a curator at the Disney Archives. He was a member of the Manuscript Society. I've worked with David, I believe Melanie has as well, and we've certainly exchanged stories, if nothing else. Melanie's a frequent speaker at appraisal and collectors conferences. She actually was part of an appraisal conference that we did at National Appraisal Consultants, got rave reviews, and she wrote the section on animation art for the International Society of Appraisers Fine Art course. She is truly an expert, and I'm absolutely delighted to have her join us today. So with that, I am going to, Melanie, I'm going to escape from my screen. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and we're going to get you to share your screen, which means I have to make you a host. And I'm going to figure out where I put my little host thing so I can make you the host. Where are we? There we are. And I'm going to do that right now. And you should be able to do that in just a second more. I'm going to make you the host, which means now you can hit your little share screen button down there, and we can transfer you over. We can take control of the world.
Did that work?
Don't see it yet. It's when you hit share screen, it should come up and it'll ask you which screen you're sharing.
Okay, wait for it.
All right. Along your bottom toolbar, it says share screen. And if you click on that, there you go. It's coming up. You got it. All right. What we see is we see your Zoom screen now. And now we see your thing there.
Okay.
You can go to your, oops, and you can just go to what do you call it? Let me just move this out of the way.
There we go.
There you go. We got a full screen and you're all set to go. Good.
All right.
So I turn it over. Melanie Smith, it's your show.
Well, thank you. And I'll start off by saying that $2.9 million. So that's the all-time record for the highest grossing animation art auction. And that took place just this last December at Heritage Auctions. It's going to. So what is animation art? And why are some pieces barely $5 and others are over $100,000? And what do you need to know in order to appraise it? Well, hello, I'm Melanie Smith, and I've been handling animation art since the very early 80s. I was a Saturday morning cartoon kid, so you can only imagine how excited I was when I found out that the actual artwork used to create cartoons could be owned. My gallery has been a preferred gallery of Disney and dealt with many others. And we've also had Disney artists at the gallery to demonstrate how cels were painting. So this Grinch and Max is the very first piece of animation art that I ever owned and is part of my personal collection. So back to animation art. It's a unique in the art world because it was not created for the purpose of being a painting or a drawing. These were created to make a film. So the storyline and the movement and the personality of the characters are of the highest priority. So it used to take thousands of paintings and drawings to create a cartoon. But because of the computer, this is no longer necessary since cartoons are no longer made this way. But collectively, all of the paintings and drawings used to create a cartoon is known as animation art. There is production animation art and there's non-production animation art. So production animation art is the actual artwork, drawing, and cels which were used to create the film or the cartoon short. So we'll start with storyboard drawings. These are the script for the cartoon. This is the series of sketches which plot out the action, the dialogue of the story. So instead of writing that Mickey walks through the door, a pencil drawing illustrates this action. And then these little drawings would be mounted on a wall so that the script could be fine-tuned by adding or deleting the drawings. Then the animators would get together and they would do character model sheets. And these are drawings of the characters in various poses and different expressions. These were then photocopied and handed out to all the animators for visual reference so that the character would be drawn consistently throughout the film. So the layout drawing is the stage for the film. So if you were watching a play, this is the background that the actors would move across. And sometimes they would do what's called a pan background, which is a longer drawing. And this is needed so that the camera can move with the action. Next step would be the rough animation drawings. Now, these are the pencil drawings of the characters by the head animator. These plot out the character's movements during a particular scene. The drawings are done on animation paper, which is paper that has the peg hole punched in the bottom of it. Occasionally, you can find them located at the top, these little holes, but most of the time they're found at the bottom. The next step would be the cleanup drawings, and they are the refined rough drawings. There are also more refined drawings which are added in between the movements of the rough drawing so that the character motion will be smoother. These are then photographed in sequence to test the action of the character. And once they've been approved, these drawings are transferred to the clear acetate or celluloid. Now, in order to transfer the pencil drawing to the cel used to be placed over the paper, and each outline was hand traced in ink onto the cel. So at Disney, Sleeping Beauty, which was done in 1959, was the very last film that was hand inked. But starting with 101 Dalmatians in 1961, Disney used a 6-step xerographic process, of which ensured that the lines on the cel were much more faithful to the lines of the cleanup or the pencil drawing. So cel is the term which is short for celluloid, but is also used to mean the painting. So after the drawing has been transferred to the cel, and that goes to the painters, they carefully hand paint each piece from the back of the cel. So everything's painted in reverse. So, and then everything that moves in an animation film must be drawn and then painted onto the cel. So Disney uses 24 cels to create 1 second of film. The Saturday morning cartoons usually used about 8 cels to create 8 cels per second of the cartoon. So that's why you get a much smoother cartoon with Disney than you do with the Saturday morning cartoons. So in the early years, celluloid nitrate, which is highly explosive and difficult to properly store and handle, was used. But this changed in the 50s to celluloid acetate, which is much more stable. So the paintings which are actually photographed to create the films are called production cels. So the next is a cel setup. And this is when the matching of the cel with the correct background. Okay, this is photographed and becomes a single frame of the film. The celluloid material is clear so that a number of cels will be photographed over the same background. This way, the background only has to be painted once for that particular scene as the characters move across it. Then a publicity cel is a hand-painted cel which was created by the studio to hand out as a goodwill gesture. It's usually of popular characters in the perfect pose. Then you have hand-painted limited edition cels, and that's a painting which was created from an animation drawing that was transferred to a cel and painted in a limited number. Now, this is created exactly the same way as a production cel. The difference being is that this is not the actual cel that was photographed to create the film. The hand-painted limited edition cel is usually a scene of the character in the perfect pose, and then it's numbered in an edition. Now, a series cel is a silk screen or a serigraph print of the characters on celluloid, and they're in very large editions. And needless to say, these are not production art. And just to confuse things even more, there's called a 1-of-1. And this is a hand-painted limited edition cell in an edition of 1. And it is usually numbered 1 of 1. But it is paired with the actual production animation pencil drawing that was used to create this 1 of 1. And someplace in the world, there was a production cell of it. So while it literally takes thousands of drawings and cells to create the cartoons, you would think that we'd be swimming in animation art. But unfortunately, that is not the case. In the early years, the studios were on such a tight budget that they would wash the paints off the celluloid and reuse it for the next cartoon. Very few cells from the black and white cartoons still exist. Between improper storage and general neglect, most of that artwork has been destroyed. So many of the only pieces only survived due to the efforts of the Seaside Gallery. So in 1937, they approached Walt Disney with the idea of selling artwork used to create the cartoons. This was the year that Snow White was released, and Disney agreed to the arrangement. So the art was created with the action of the character in mind. Therefore, there are many cells that are necessary for the completion of the film that look terrible when seen in a single frame. So only about 10% or less of the art created looks good enough to hang on the wall. As an example, if the character is going through a doorway, they only draw the bits and pieces that you see. They don't draw the entire character. So one of the first considerations in valuing a work of animation art is the studios. The studio has all the rights to the character and is considered the artist. So no matter who actually did the drawing or the painting, the studio is the artist. Disney is the biggest name, and Warner Brothers is a very close second. So you need to consider whether the art comes from a feature film or a cartoon short. And where does it fit into the time period? Was it from a beloved film or a less well-known one? Such as Mickey from Fantasia is much more valuable than Mickey from the Mickey Mouse Club. So just like the big movie stars make the big bucks, the hero or the villains of the cartoons are more valuable than the minor characters. Also, if the character is in a good pose with a wonderful expression, and if he is generally centered on the celluloid material instead of being towards the edge, it is more desirable. Every now and then, the scene that the characters are from greatly enhances the value. The most notable one of these is the Lady and Tramp together from the Bella Notte, the spaghetti eating scene. Now, this scene is more valuable than the two characters together from any other scene in the movie. To give you an example, Lady and the Tramp, depending on their pose, together generally runs from $2,500 to $3,500. If you found them from the Bella Notte scene, then you can be talking about anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000. So the background behind the cell will also affect the value. Most production cells are not available with a background. A production background, that's the actual painting that was matched to the cell that it was photographed with in the movie, is also often called a key setup and is the most valuable combination that is sought after when collecting animation art. Then there's the non-matching production background. So the background's from the same movie, but it's not the cell that it was photographed with. And then a production background with a cell from a different movie. Then you can have a painted background from the Seaside Gallery, which was a custom airbrush painting background. And then you can have a painted background by an unknown artist, and you can have a reproductive print of the background. And all of those affect the value. So some of the studios have allowed directors or animators to sign the cels. Now, signatures can enhance the value, but the quality or the authenticity of the art is not affected by the absence of a signature. So Hanna Barbera signed production cels and hand-painted limited edition cels. Warner Brothers allowed Chuck Jones, Fritz Freleng, Virgil Ross, and even Michael Jordan and Muhammad Ali to sign their art. It is possible to find production cels where the mats have been signed by Walt Disney, but many animators signed his name with his approval. So in these cases, it's very important to get the signature authorized. So during the 50s and 60s, Disney was placing a gold paper label on the back of the mat of the cels that were sold at the theme parks. In 1973, they started putting a large round seal with initials in the middle of it. And the seal, and then in the 80s, the seal became smaller and round. And then later, they created rectangular seals for television cels. But many thanks should be directed to this gallery, which no longer exists. It should be noted that most of the artwork which passed through this gallery was altered from the original state. The characters were very carefully trimmed to their outline, glued to the painted background, and then a clear, plain sheet of celluloid was placed over them. It's a shame that the cels were altered this way, but thanks to this gallery, at least they still exist. Now, like all original art, accidents and problems do happen. The cels have been trimmed, paint is missing or cracking on the celluloid. The old celluloid material ripples and are just a few of the problems that can happen. Now, the cels that were signed with a large Disney seal were laminated, and they did this in an effort to help protect the art. But unfortunately, this lamination can sometimes fail and air pockets begin to form between the sheets of the celluloid, making it look like it's bubbling. So all of these adversely impact the value of the art. Again, like all original art, if restoration is possible, then it's professionally done, and I do say professionally done, then the value is enhanced beyond the damaged state, but it's not as valuable as if it had been perfect and never restored. So the market of animation art has experienced its highs and lows. This chart is from Art Price and is a graph for the strength of the market for Disney animation art. As you can see, it took a hit during the 2008 and 2009 crisis, and it has been strengthening. But a major sale has not taken place yet in 2023, but I expect this chart will show that this year will be stronger than it is currently showing right this minute. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and I am happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Melanie. This was great. This is so cool. I'm sure we're going to have I got a ton of questions for you too. So I'm going to reclaim my host spot here. And I'm going to put up the, and I'm going to share a screen as well and see if I can put this back up and get my PowerPoint back up, not full blown, but just enough so people can see what we're doing. So let me cover a couple of things here. Let me share that. And let me do a couple of things, and then we'll get to questions, and we'll have a plenty of time for that too, so I can let people know what's going on. I see somebody with their hand up, so let me find out. Oh, I'm gonna let Nini.
Hi.
Oh, hey, Nini, how are you?
I am fine.
Oh, we're having an ISA reunion here, aren't we?
Yes. I just be real quick because I don't know.
No, you don't have to be real quick. You take your time. What's up?
Well, I noticed there's a similar hues in all these pictures, and I was wondering if they had a certain color scheme or colors that they used more often, like the browns of the dog or it didn't seem they didn't vary the colors that much. Is that part of the technology, or was that something else? just because my eyes, I'm a color.
Probably part of it is because I like bright colors, so it might have been the pieces that I chose. But I would have to say, I would go back to Disney and say that Disney was very particular about their colors. They mixed all of their pigments and colors there on the studio so that they could have, and they gave each one of them a number. That's how they referred to them. And they would create the moods in their pieces or their movies by their color schemes that they would choose. Like in Lady and Tramp actually have two different colors. They had their daytime colors and they had their nighttime colors. And generally speaking, Lady and Tramp in their daytime colors are more valuable than the ones in their nighttime colors.
Very interesting. Thank you so much.
That's it? That's all you got?
Well, I didn't want to take up her time too much. But,
No, go ahead.
Because also, because in movies, they are color schemes. That some movies are blues and other movies are oranges. And I was wondering about that with the movies that are obviously all man-made colors. So
yes.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good deal. Thanks so much. That's great. All right, I'm going to mute you back again too. Thank you so much for doing that. That's great. Good deal. Other questions? You can either raise a hand. Oh, we got some hands up. Good. I'm going to go right down here. Tom, I'm going to unmute you, so you're good to go here. You may have to unmute yourself in order to do that, but I think you're able to speak now. I mean, yep.
If you can hear me, my question is whether the pencil drawings that you identified, I think, as pre-production drawings, how do you value those as compared to the complete colored cels?
Okay, generally speaking, if you have a pencil drawing and you have the cel that was created from that pencil drawing, the cel is more valuable than the pencil drawing. But you can't say that all cels are more valuable than all pencil drawings because, again, you go back to the studio and who the character is. Because a pencil drawing, a Snow White, is much more valuable than a cel of like Quick Draw McGraw. You know, two different studios. They're both, you know, production animation art. But the pencil drawing of Snow White is a much more iconic character, and it's from Disney, and that will be much more valuable than Quick Draw McGraw from Hanna Barbera.
And if I wanted to get a more precise value of one of those, where would I go? Other than to the Outer Banks, which I assume is where you're at.
That would be my suggestion. You want to speak with a pro. That's the person to talk to.
Well, I live in Western North Carolina, so the Outer Banks is a long ways away.
Yeah, I send me images.
Yeah, Melanie, you can at least get things started with a picture or an image, right? To figure out what you can do. That's good.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you,
I'll
Tom.
unmute myself here.
There you go. Yep, I'll mute you there too. Nick, looks like you're up next. You're good to go there, Nick?
There we go. Sorry.
Yeah, I hear you. No, you're good. That's great. What's up?
I unmute myself. Thank you all for doing this tonight. This is great stuff. I just have a question from a collector's vantage. You know, in numismatics, we have plenty of sources to get information and to get valuations and last sales and things like that. And for years, I've always struggled with trying to get a baseline on what various different pieces might be worth. Is there anything out there that's reputable, that's published, like PCGS or NGC in this space that could give us some color on various pricing and approximate values on pieces?
Not really. What you have to do is if you want to start doing comparisons, I would suggest heritage auctions. There are some really good galleries that handle animation or specialize in animation. I'd go start comparing them. One of the best ways to do research is to watch cartoons, and that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, did a lot of that.
Yeah. But it's mainly being aware of how the scenes and the characters and what becomes the things that have entered our culture. Those are the things that are usually much more valuable than just general animation.
Yeah.
Hey,
Can I
Nick, if I could just add to that too,
Yeah.
in numismatics, we have the ability to have coins slabbed and graded and independently authenticated. I think that level of, I wouldn't say that level of detail, I wouldn't say sophistication, probably doesn't exist in that world. Melanie, would you agree that there isn't a central source for not authentication, but identification of condition on a scale of 1 to 10 and desirability on a scale of 1 to 10 it's certainly objective, but probably more subjective than what we see in coin grading.
Oh, definitely a whole lot more subjective, because each piece is most of the time they're one of a kind pieces.
Right.
So you're not always comparing exact things against another exact thing in order to create a good scale of comparisons.
Yeah, I've actually gone onto YouTube and pulled up old cartoons to find the mark on a particular piece to see if it was valid or not.
Yeah,
Oh, there
that's
you go.
like I said, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, I
great.
know. Can I ask one more question? You
Sure,
mentioned-
Nick. And just
you
before you do, certainly you got the floor. A lot of folks have actually typed in questions. I haven't forgotten you. I'm going to go to you next. And I know Megan, you're in there too. You got your hand up. I'm going to get to you. So we're going to get to all the questions. Nick, you're up. Go ahead with your other question.
Well, yeah, one more final piece. You mentioned
Sure.
two different types of acetone. What years were those, and how do you tell the difference between them?
The celluloid nitrate
Celluloid.
was the earlier. It has more of a tendency to yellow and warp a little. The others started around the 1950s. The way you tell is when you know what year the cartoon is from, because they just stopped using it.
Okay.
A match works well too.
Yeah.
To tell the difference.
Yeah.
And they were
Yeah.
quite flammable, weren't they?
Yes, they were.
We allowed-
That's part of the problem, was that a lot of times they would storm, they would stack them, and then when they'd go back to get them, they were all fused together. So
Yeah,
much
yeah.
art has been just, out of just hasn't survived.
Excellent.
Good deal.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Great. Thanks, Nick. Good deal. All right, I'm going to read a couple questions to you, Melanie. I got it right here. Ed says, how does one determine if a cell is a production cell or an idealized non-production cell, especially for the later popular films like Yellow Submarine and that the Beatles animation?
Again, look at it, and if it's like the perfect pose, the perfect what everybody would want, then I would start to question if it was a publicity cell or one that was used in the production. If it's one where the characters are obviously doing something, probably profile, they're running off to the scene, those, because it's the action of the character that was important to create the cartoon, those are almost always the production art.
Got it. Good deal. Megan, I know you have your hand up, so I'll go back to you again there too, but you typed a question. Love the presentation, exclamation point. Can you address anime as collection pieces versus classic animation?
My heart goes to the classic animation, so I don't follow the anime quite as closely as I do that. Again, it depends on who the character is, how strong of a cult following that particular cartoon has. It hasn't reached, as far as I have been able to tell, it hasn't reached to the values of what the classic animation has, but it may have over in Japan. I just haven't followed it as closely.
Got it. Good deal. Good deal. Charles has a question for you. What type of paint was used for the celluloid?
The Disney used a gum Arabic. I know that they changed in the later years, but that's the one that I'm most familiar with.
Got it. And he also asks about why was the painting done in reverse? The camera will invert the image, not reverse it. But I think you're talking about reverse painting, right, Melanie?
Right.
As in the part that you see first is the part that's closest to you, and the paint was laid on after, kind of like the reverse painting of mirrors that we see in antiques, correct?
Right. Well, the reason for it is because when you look at the top part of the cell, the part that the camera sees, that's the celluloid. All the paint's applied behind that. And that way the color's nice and smooth. You don't have any of the texture of the paint. It just smooths that color right out.
And it gives you sharper edges because the outline in black is the one that's closest to you. So when you fill in with paint behind it, you're not painting over the line drawing, correct?
Correct.
Okay, got it. Okay, I hope that helps. Anonymous attendee. That's an interesting name. How do you authenticate the signatures? That could be. You take that one because you're our guest.
I was going to say you're the author.
I'd be happy to share, but you go ahead, and then we'll tag team this one. What do you think?
Yeah, I was going to say, if it was a Disney signature, I'd come see you. I mean, you know, that's just, but all the rest of them, I haven't had I know what should be signed and what shouldn't be signed.
Mm-hmm.
And if something that shouldn't be signed, it does have a signature on it, then I start to question the authenticity of the signature. Especially Disney only allowed certain pieces to be signed or certain pieces to be signed by only a few animators, sometimes the voices, but not very often.
Good
So
point. Yep. Great. And I think Melanie, a lot of it, we'll call it, if you've been in this business for as long as you have, Melanie, as long as I have, you get this gut feeling, there's this sixth sense, but it's not just a sophisticated, wild guess. It's based upon the idea that this shouldn't be signed. These were never signed. This one shouldn't have gotten out there with a signature on it. So understanding the history and the provenance of pieces is a big part of it too. When I'm looking at signatures, and I primarily look at more historical signatures on paper, I look for the ink, the type of paper. Was that person where he or she said he was at the time, which doesn't necessarily fit as much with animation cels or signed cels. But a lot of times things can be signed after. And there are Disney dinosaurs or artists that have left Disney that did drawings on their own, probably inappropriately based upon copyright and things like that. And they're out there too. There are authentication companies that are known for authenticating signatures and can certainly do that. But it's a matter of understanding the ink, the paper, the style of writing of that person, knowing that Disney was not a great artist. Is an important thing to know, and we can tell stories all day about drawings that were purported to have been drawn by Disney, and we know they weren't done by Disney because they're just too complex and they're just too good. His signature and his signature vary too, and as you said, Disney authorized his artist to actually sign his name, correct?
Correct.
Good. Okay.
And the other thing you have to be careful with, like with I'm thinking of Chuck Jones in particular, because you have hand signed pieces by Chuck Jones. They had stamped his signature on there, and then they also did an auto pen of his signature.
Right. And an auto pen is a machine that holds a real pen in its mechanical hand, and when you step on the foot pedal, it follows a template and actually writes that signature on there. And there are characteristics of an auto pen that are very distinctive, that it's slowly drawn, it's written rather than signed, even pen pressure. The corners sometimes have a little chatter or shake around them because of the template. So auto pens are very common, and they write the signature exactly the same way. So if you have a file of signatures, any signatures, you can lay one right on top of the other and it'll match up exactly if you put it on a light board or copied it onto a piece of clear plastic, right? True?
Yes.
Good. Okay. Robert asks, do you encounter animation art from studios such as Fleischer Brothers or UPA or J. Ward? And I don't know who any of those are, and I've never heard of, but Melanie probably will.
Yeah. Yes, I've seen occasionally for them to come up in auction, but I've never handled any of those personally. I've had some of Jay Ward's publicity sales, but I haven't ever had a production sale by them. Same thing with Fleischer UPC.
And tell me, were they cartoonists? Tell us
Yeah.
more about those organizations.
Jay Ward, he was famous for Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Fleischer, I know they did a little clown, I think it's Coco the Clown, but I'm drawing a blank on that. And the same thing, UPC, I think, did Mr. Magoo.
I see. Cool. All right, great. Thanks, Robert. Joel and his parrot asks, is there a big difference in price between a cell that is a multi-plane animation versus a single 2D animation, or is it more based on the popularity of the cartoon animation? A multi-cell plane animation versus a single 2D animation. Is he talking about the overlays?
You're talking about the layers of the cells?
Yeah. Joel, you want me to unmute you? Can I do that? And you can ask your question. Would that be all right? I'm gonna allow you to talk. Where do you go? Where did you go? You're up at the top. There you are. Joel, if you want to unmute yourself, and you want to ask that question, because I probably didn't ask it properly, feel free to do that. And if not, no worries. There you are.
Hi. By the way, Sonny is not a parrot. Okay, he's a cockatiel.
I'm sorry. Sonny is that. What kind of bird is he?
He's a cockatiel.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got it wrong. Okay.
No,
That's
don't
good.
worry about it. He
Thank
won't
you.
take offense.
That's good. All right. I want to make sure I get the pronouns right too. I don't want to insult or bother anybody. So thank you for good luck to say. Here's a toast to Sonny.
Okay, yeah, that's true. My question is basically, is there a big difference in price between a cell for multi-plane animation versus a single 2D animation? Or is it more based on the popularity of the cartoon animation?
Are you asking me about, because I know cells are done in layers?
Yeah, in layers.
Okay, it depends on it's the popularity of the character in the cartoon.
Okay.
Because like Fred Flintstone, he can have a whole bunch of cells in order to create him, because in order to cut down on their labor, they would do his body, they would do his mouth on another cell, and they would do his eyes on a third cell. That way they only had to do his body one time, and then his eyes and his mouth could move independently. That's another reason why your Saturday morning cartoons look stiff.
Yeah.
Where if you've got more than one character with Disney, they would have if you have more than one character, they would be on two separate cells so that they could move them independently of each other. But it still boils down to if they're popular characters or not. You have two minor characters compared to one, the hero of the cartoon. The hero is going to win every time.
Okay.
There you go. Thanks, Joel. Joel and I went to high school together almost 50 years ago. Thank you, Joel. That's good. Take care of yourself up there, all right?
Will do.
All righty. Good deal. Another question comes up. If a piece is framed, how can you ensure the authenticity and type of animation, in parentheses, post-production?
Can you run that by me again?
She's asking about our anonymous attendees asking about if a piece is framed, how can you authenticate it? Do you take things out of the frame to identify it and get a closer look? And identify the type of animation that it is.
If I have something for the gallery, I always take it out of the frame.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing with if I'm doing appraisal work, most people don't want me to take their things out of the frame, and I have to look at it and make my best opinion. But
you also put in a limiting condition and a critical assumption, right? A limiting condition.
Definitely.
The client said, I wasn't able to take it out, so I can't tell for sure. And the critical assumption is we assume it to be authentic or assume it not to be authentic or whatever. The certificate of authenticity is acceptable. So that's all part of the appraisal process. We got plenty of appraisers on that know about that as well too. Good. What else? I think we covered most of the questions here. Let me just continue a little bit, and then we'll give you some last minute thoughts. Melanie, would that be okay?
Yes.
To do that too? Okay, I'm going to play from the current slide. Here's what's coming up, just so you know. There we are. Come on. There it is. Manuscript Society, we've been around for 75 years. This is our new logo up at the top. In May, we're coming up to our annual meeting. It's in Los Angeles, California. It's going to be an incredible conference. If you love manuscripts, if you want a backstage tour of so many places out in Los Angeles area, this is the place to do it. We are able to go behind the doors that say staff only, museum staff only, library staff only. You'll see some incredible things. So you can go to manuscript.org and you can learn more about that. If you want to travel to Rome, we got a tour coming up. Also as well, it's a private tour. Again, you're going to see things that most people don't see because it's the backstage tour. It's the behind the scenes tour. We do these every year. We'll be roaming in Rome, and it's going to be California. Here we come. So check out manuscript.org and you'll be able to see what's going on there. I'm going to see if I missed another question here. Sarah says, thanks for the presentation. Prints and Photographs Division has a small collection of animation art from roughs to cels and presentation drawings. I tried to take notes on the vocabulary you used. Is there a source to better describe what we possess? Some of the digitized prints are on our catalog. It's Library of Congress person. So Melanie, I will connect you with Sarah. All right.
Okay,
And,
be happy
and
to.
and then you guys can you folks can connect. I'm going to copy this and put it somewhere so I don't lose it somewhere, and I'll be able to you guys will be able to make contact. Good deal. So that's the story on the Manuscript Society. Let's see what else is happening here that I want you to know about. Our Manuscript Mondays have been going on for over a year. If you'd like, if any of these topics appeal to you even in the slightest bit, you can look at these online. The last month we did Spanish New Orleans. I've done one on Declaration of Independence. We talked about artists and the Tile Club. Warren Harding had an affair and sent love letters to his girlfriend while he was married before he became president. Really fascinating story. People think she may have been a spy from Germany and tried to get Harding to not be involved in the war. How appraisers determine value. We talked about how people find out what prices are, dead letter office photos. All these things are up there. They're on the Manuscript Society website. They're absolutely free. It's just like these have been presented to you. So you should check that out. And just so you know, like they say on the commercials, wait, there's more. What more is you can watch this anytime. Give me about 2 weeks to put it up on our YouTube channel, and it's going to be posted on the Manuscript Society website. I want to thank you for joining us. Thanks to the trustees and staff of the Manuscript Society, and again for you, and especially to Melanie Smith from Seaside Art Gallery, and ISA accredited appraiser who has presented some really amazing stuff. I got one more thing to put up here, and there's more programs on the way. Next month, I'll tell you what's coming up. But if there's a topic you'd like to see, you want to be involved with it, one you might want to present, let me know, because we're always looking for great speakers, people that can share what they know, which is always really wonderful. And this isn't moving. There it is. Just let me know, and I'd be happy to do that too. If you'd like to underwrite these in some way and support this, let me know. I'll give you all the details. Your name or your organization will live in infamy because these things go on YouTube and they just stay there. Tom, give me 1 second and I'll get to your question, I promise. Let me just get through a little bit of this, and then we'll get to your question too. What's next? On March 6th, I'm going to do a program on Oscars, Emmys, and Grammys, oh my, and Nobel Prize medals too. A lot of people haven't seen them. They don't know what they look like close up, and when you take them apart and look at all the intricacies. So I'm going to share some pictures of that and talk to you a little bit about value. Susan Leahy from Ontario, Canada is going to talk about Asian art and artifacts, and we got a whole bunch more coming up, but that's what's coming up for the next 2. If you're not a member of the Manuscript Society, you can join right now or anytime at manuscript.org. That is my email. If I can answer any questions for you, just let me know, and that'd be great. So Melanie, Tom's got a question for you. He said, are you familiar with Gallery Lanesla? It's LAINZLA.
Oh, Gallery Lanesburg?
He says Gallery Lanesla, which is in Iowa. I have some drawings there that were authenticated by it. So I don't know if, does that ring a bell, or can you share any?
If it's Cedar Rapids, Iowa?
I'm
Is he
not
asking
yeah.
about Gallery Lanesburg?
He said he
L-A-I-N-Z.
spelled it out L-A. Tom, you know what I'm going to do? Let me see if I can get you to let me find out. I'm just going to get out of this thing for a second here. Give me a second. I'm going to end my slideshow and I'm going to see if I can find you and you can actually ask the question. Tom, where are you, Tom? We know you're here somewhere. Where are you? Q&A. Hold on, don't go away. Let's see if we can get you up there. Tom. There it is. Tom, I'm going to let you unmute and you can ask your question or maybe share some more information.
Thanks.
There you go.
Yeah, you have the right gallery. It was in Cedars Rapids. I think it's out of business now. I bought at a yard sale of all places some illustrations, Disney 37 to 41, I think, that I like, and they were all had a certificate of authenticity by this gallery, and I'm wondering what that really meant.
So Melanie, you don't have to.
If
You don't
you're
have to.
referring,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
if you're referring to Gallery Lanesburg in Cedar Rapids,
Oh,
Iowa, back in
yes.
the 80s, they were, that's what they specialized in, was animation art. And what they would do was that they would actually go to a lot of the colleges and they would set up booth and they would sell the animation art for hardly anything because nobody knew anything that much about animation. But that's part of how a lot of people learned about it. During that time period, they're kind of like one of the pioneering galleries for animation art. So without knowing, you can't tell me who the characters are?
Oh yeah, I have one of the Seven Dwarfs, and I have one of Mickey from that same time period. I've got, I think, a couple of examples from the first 3 or 4 Disney films.
Okay. Well, they were a very viable, gallery with a very good reputation.
That's very helpful to know. I appreciate it.
Mhm.
Good. But let's just talk about, in general, certificates of authenticity. In California, they passed a law for fine art that require that you couldn't sell art without a certificate of authenticity. The problem is art forgeries quadrupled that year because if you're going to fake the art, might as well fake a certificate of authenticity. So I think a certificate of authenticity is only good as the person or the organization issuing it. Melanie, thoughts on that?
Oh, I definitely agree. I find it fascinating how so many people put so much emphasis on the COA when unless you know who's signing it, if they're willing to back it, then it's just a piece of paper.
Good point. Good deal. Great. Last call for questions. We're almost up to our time, but there's always time for questions. Raise your hand if you have a question. I'd be happy to pass it along to Melanie. And if not, give everybody a minute here or two to see if there's anything else that comes up. You're going to receive an email at the end that says, thanks so much for joining us. It'll provide you with a link to the Manuscript Society. My email will be on there as well. If you have questions or you'd like to reach out to Melanie directly, Melanie, your best, tell us it's Seaside. Just give us the gallery, just seasideart.com.
Yeah, it's seasideart.com is the gallery. You can find our email address on that, which is info@seasideart.com.
Good deal. Reach out to Melanie. It's always a pleasure. You are just the best. And we're always so happy to have you with us. I always learn so much. Everyone you do is a little bit different and a little more exciting than the one before it. So I'm just so happy that you joined us, and we are grateful to you and wish you all the best. Take care of yourself, and we hope to see you all soon. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next month right here on Manuscript Monday.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Melanie. It was just great. We're going to,
Gotcha.
How do I get out of here? I can't. There we go. We got to end this thing.
Yeah.
There we go. End webinar for all. See y'all. Thanks again.
Bye.
Thanks, Melanie. Bye-bye.